A little bit about why we're here today, why we put this call together. This call is an opportunity for us to start to wrap our heads around the new government and the situation in Israel as it pertains to Arab citizens of Israel and Jewish-Arab relations. It's also a chance to come together as colleagues, as to reflect, learn, listen, and start thinking about what these issues and dynamics mean for our own unique work and engagement, particularly regarding the topics of Arab citizens of Israel and Jewish-Arab relations. Today, we're bringing you into an informal conversation by design. First, between Shahira and Barak is an opportunity to hear from practitioners on the ground about what they're seeing, hearing, thinking about, and then to talk amongst each other about how we think about in the context of what we do in American Jewish communities. And this is really not a chance yet to talk about solutions, actions, right or wrong, have perfect answers to everything, but to listen and learn together as a community. There's a lot going on in Israel right now, as all of us know, and when there's so many different dynamics and moving pieces, it's easy for any individual part of the story to get lost. And Arab citizens have not been a prominent part of discourse in Israel or in US Jewish communities in recent weeks. But as those of you know from coming to this call, it's quite an important issue for what's happening in Israel. Arab citizens represent 21% of Israel's population, so this topic is really about the well-being of a large minority community and the social cohesion of the state as a whole. So it intersects in lots of important ways what's on the front page of the news and has serious implications for Israel's standing and democracy. This call is part of a much longer process we're all going through and a lot of what we're trying to offer at IATF. We're going to have more brown bags, webinars, opportunities to explore these issues together and to hear from different experts and practitioners on the ground. So we hope that you lean in and engage with us as we move and think about these issues together. Just a little bit about what the next 70 minutes or so are going to look like. First, Liron is going to frame and provide some context for our conversation. Then Shahira and Barak are going to share some of their insights. They're going to be in conversation with each other. Then we'll hopefully have some opportunity for some Q&A from all of you. And then finally, we'll move into small group discussions amongst ourselves. I'll note that we have the chat on the side. We're probably not going to get to all questions during this call. So if you have questions as they come up, especially clarifying questions, if there's a term or concept you hear Barak or Shahira use that you don't know, feel free to just drop it in the chat and then we'll try to answer it there. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Liron.
Hi, Erica. Thank you so much. Took me a second to unmute. We do have a lot of content on this call, and I think, Erica, you framed the purpose well. So I'm just going to take 5 minutes to give some context. But I just have to do a logistical note. Miranda, if you can be in touch with Barak because he's struggling to log in, as well as a few other people. So for those of us focused on Arab citizens and Jewish-Arab relations in Israel, this is an especially challenging moment. As Erica said, there is an incessant flow of news about so many moving pieces, and it's a lot to make sense of in a calm atmosphere, and the atmosphere is really anything but calm. Most of the changes filling the headlines are not those that are explicitly about Arab citizens. In addition, few Arabs are participating in the protests that are engaging so much of the Israeli left. But the government came in very, very prepared. And since December, they've been moving quickly to implement their plans, suggesting that what we are seeing now are just the first stages of a longer vision. Arab citizens may not be central to what people are talking about or to even most of the legislation and policies that we're seeing, but they do stand to be among the first most directly impacted by the new government. In some cases, this is due to direct policies and legislation proposals, for example, like clauses to coalition agreements that redirect unused budgets for Arab economic development. Those of you that know GR 550, the 5-year plans, to law enforcement and policing, or proposals to stop recognizing degrees awarded by Palestinian universities where thousands of Arab citizens matriculate. In other cases, policies affecting Arab citizens are indirect, like coalition agreements that commit to promoting what are the way they're described as positive migration to the Negev and Galil, where many Arab communities are located. Many leaders on the ground interpret this as Jewish migration explicitly. Or another example is turning the Ministry of Personal Security into the Ministry of National Security and giving it increased powers over both police and border police, blurring the lines between law enforcement and Arab communities in Israel and on and beyond the Green Line vis-a-vis the Palestinian population. The number and variety of proposals are so nuanced and so many, and the concerns among Israeli and American Jews so focused on the overall impact on Israeli democracy that it can be difficult to see any other connecting thread. However, from the vantage point of Arab citizens of Israel, the issue is that there's an overall change in government approach to the Arab minority. Many people on this call know that and have been following that over the last 20 years, the government promoted an increasingly robust agenda of narrowing gaps and reducing inequalities between Jewish and Arab citizens, casting Arab society as a population with whom to meet, work, and study. The new administration is not pushing back directly on socioeconomic development, not at all, but its main discourse on Arab society so far has largely centered on crime, violence, and Arab citizens as a potential terrorist threat within Israel's larger existential conflict. For example, since the beginning of the year, there have been proposals to, as I said before, reject academic degrees in Palestinian universities to deter radicalization, make it easier to disqualify Arab candidates for Knesset on the grounds of anti-Israel sentiments or support for terror, revoking citizenship of convicted terrorists and their families, prohibiting displays of the Palestinian flag, and so forth. The important thing with these is that no one can argue with deterrence of prevention of terrorism. That is fundamental. But the shift in political approach is deeper impact of sowing mistrust in the public sphere and setting the stage for the government to make the division between Jews and Arabs superior to the issues of a shared Israeli citizenship. So I've gone on a little bit longer than I would like to. Basically, I know that there's a lot of debate about the democratic merits of what's happening, but we want to also put in the framing that there's an existential division between neighbors that is also part of the impact of the discourse, and that puts a wrench not only in the socioeconomic development trends of the last 20 years, but provokes volatility. And these are issues that American Jews have been engaged in and following for so many years. We felt it really important to open up the conversation to explore the degree and seriousness of these issues. Back to you, Erica.
Thank you. So we're gonna invite Shahira and Barak to join me, and we'll have a conversation, the three of us, for a little bit. We're gonna be putting Shahira and Barak's bios in the chat, so we could jump right into the conversation that we're having together. So first, I want to ask both of you, what do you see, given the framing that Liron just shared, and what you're seeing and hearing? What is the current state of Jewish-Arab relations in Israel? And how much is or isn't this being shaped by the new government? And Barak, let's start with you.
Hi, friends. Thank you for having me. Well, this, I mean, we're in difficult times, a little bit confusing. I'll try to kind of, wrap my head around it to help all of us maybe kind of make sense a little bit of this reality. To your question, Erica, I think that a lot of what we're seeing today, and I'm trying to zoom out, and I know it's hard for me, it's hard for my friends and my colleagues here on the ground, but on this call, I would like to do that if I may. I would like to argue that what we're seeing today is actually a backlash to the trends over the last decade in Jewish-Arab relations and pertaining to Arab citizens. Arab citizens are much better integrated into the Israeli, the larger Israeli society. They make more money. They are, I think we see more and more kind of Arab, middle class. We see, as we saw in the last government, we saw the first Arab-Jewish coalition in the first time in Israel's history, in a governing coalition. And it feels like a lot of what we're now experiencing is a huge backlash on that. Now, frankly, it feels like a kind of a pendulum, and it swung one way, and now it might kind of swinging to the other way. It's yet to be, it's not that clear for now how the new government will impact the field of shared society and Arab-Jewish relations directly. Time will tell, although we already can see a few things that part of them, some of it Liron mentioned in her words before. Some of it is kind of, is more nuanced. It's a kind of either new or renewed rhetoric, suddenly, attributing nationalistic kind of intention into criminal, deeds. We see it more and more recently. Suddenly starting to act or kind of react to Arab, criminals or criminal act as a national one, and then relate to it as such, kind of having the concept of fighting terror as part of the rhetoric. So it's a little bit, it's a little bit nuanced, but you can hear the music, you can hear the song beneath the words. Now, in terms of the context, in terms of the demonstration that is happening right now, I hear more and more of my Arab friends saying, we're not part of it. I mean, we get it. Most Israelis, mostly Ashkenazi, mostly from the Tel Aviv area, mostly middle upper class, would go to the demonstrations, but these are not our demonstrations. And when I ask why, like, can't you see that, there are clear implications or potential implications of the new kind of, judicial reform and so on minorities, and say, in terms of hurting democracy, and say, what democracy? What democracy? This is not the same democracy that you and I kind of experience. And therefore, this is not, for now, this is not my kind of struggle. This is not my kind of fight. I gotta say that shared society, in the way we talk about it here in the interagency task force and in these kind of forums, shared society is not central to the discourse in Israel currently. I mean, there are other stuff that mostly are focused on, the different kind of different authorities within our democracy, the whole kind of judicial reform, the idea of turning the civil administration on the West Bank to Bezalel Smotrich and his kind of party, Itamar Ben-Gvir and his party. So it's not disconnected, but it's not, the talk is not about shared society in the sense of Arab-Jewish relations. It is about kind of increasing, like the rhetoric is increasing, safety and the sense of safety of so many. I will end here for now, and I'll let Shahira take it.
Great. So Shahira, if you could respond to that same question, as well as what Barak shared, what do you see as the current state of Jewish-Arab relations, and how is that being shaped by the new government?
Oh, thank you, Erika, and thank you, Barak, for this. But let me just try to reframe the situation, and then I will relate to the questions. This is a lot is happening, and even too much in the Israeli political arena. Changes are happening at lightning speed. Laws are enacted as if there is no tomorrow. And it seems that a group has taken over the political space and is trying to shape it in its way to ensure its political control for a long time. And we need to be aware about the ease with which the Arabs are removed from the general discourse in Israel, especially when it comes to an issue that provokes internal disagreements in the Jewish society. You know that most of the Jewish society are busy with a reform in the judicial system, and they are busy with these new ministries and new jobs and expanding the authority of the Ministry of Internal services and all the changes, and they are they are worried about the democracy in Israel. So the discourse of democratic space in Israel is more important than anything else, and we are the Jewish people, we should be united. So the Arabs are as a kind of challenging this discourse, because if the Arabs want to participate in the demonstration, if they want to participate in building the democracy of Israel, they have some demands. They need to change the discourse, the main discourse. So what's happening today in the street, that in order to be united, in order to have this struggle, some voices are calling the Arabs not to participate in the demonstrations, because you are asking for equal rights, you are speaking about discrimination, you want to discuss and you want to talk about occupation, and it's not your time. Okay, if you want to discuss it, we will have other time, because the main thing that we need today is the one message that we want to struggle together in order to keep the Jewish state as democratic state. And let me say, by definition, the Jewish democratic state is something that the Arabs, the Palestinian society in Israel would like to change, would like to challenge. We would like to put some questions on this definition of the state. So this is one of the voices that we hear from the street. The second voice on the ground is the group that is blaming the Arab public that they are not participating in the demonstration. The invitation is that you should take part, because you need to struggle with us for the democratic space in Israel. So, but it's a kind, what I call it, is like it's in our condition. It's a conditional participation that you should follow the rules. And one of the rules that we are having today, that you can't, raise the Palestinian flag. And, the Palestinian flag is one of the symbols that's very important for the Arab society in Israel to say something about the identity of Palestinians, citizens in Israel. And when this is one of the conditions, so the Arabs in Israel say that we don't want to have this, we don't want to take part of this demonstrations. So what this conditional participation, I call it this conditional participation, explains some of the resistance of the Arab to take part in this struggle. But at the same time, there are a lot of worry of the things that worries the Arab in Israel today. It is changes in the structures and the definition of the Ministry of Public Security and its transformation into the Ministry of National Security. I think that also Barak and Liron they were talking about how this definition can change the attitude towards the Arab citizens. They will be perceived as enemies that needed to be fought and not civilians who need to be protected. And this is already we can notice this. We can talk about few phenomena in Israel now. First of all, that criminals, civil, let's call it crimes, okay, criminal crimes may be treated as security crimes. And the second thing that we can talk about it in very clear way today, what I call it over-policing in the Arab locations. Arab residents are already reporting this proportional of police handling different situations. Today, I met a woman who used to work with me in my previous workplace, and she told me that a policeman attacked and arrested her son, who is 13 years old, in a way in his way back from a youth club. She showed me the video clip that 7 police cars are arresting 13 years old who was later found to not doing anything. And it's important for me to note that his brother is a policeman in the Israeli police system. So that you can't say anything that the family is intends to harm the security of Israel. And there are so many cases like this. You know, if you listen to the media, to the news in Israel, every day we are witness to this kind of cases. I'm bringing only these examples of the over policing in the Arab street, in the Arab locations, as something that we need to think how this really affects the relationship between the Arabs and the Jews in the street. Because when you are a group that, as much as you are integrated, as much as this state put efforts in order to integrate the Arabs and to improve and to raise the economical status of the Arab a society in Israel, the fact that you are in crisis, in political changes, you will be treated as an enemy, will keep the situation, or not keep the situation, we will send us back 50 years ago.
Thank you, both of you, for sharing. So I'm hearing sort of two themes coming out. One is, as we're looking at sort of the government dynamics, and another important conversation happening on the ground related to Jewish-Arab relations is sort of the different responses to the government and how Arab citizens are and aren't included in that and why. And there's lots of different understandings depending on who you're asking of why that's happening, what that looks like. And the second is that piece that Liron opened at the beginning, is this question of the state relating to Arab citizens as a security situation. And if that's a shift that we're seeing over time and will continue to see as we move further into this administration, time will tell. Something that's come up in a lot of our programs and a bit on this call with this pendulum piece that you brought up, Barak, is that there's been real efforts both from the government and civil society and private sector to advance socioeconomic development and social integration for Arab citizens. Do you see this piece changing in the next few years under the new government? And I'm just looking at the time, so I'll encourage you to keep your answers relatively brief. Sure. So that we can get some audience Q&A in too.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Look, this is a capitalist government. I don't see it stopping socioeconomic advancement program and projects, actually. I think they understand it is critical for Israel's GDP. You know, remember, Arab society in Israel encompass 21% of us Israelis, and up until, I would say, 5 years ago, only 8% of our GDP. In so many interventions, so much money, government money, philanthropic money, and so on and so forth was kind of poured into this major effort to integrate into the workforce and higher education and so on, and that is now raised the part of the GDP of Israeli Arabs in the Israeli society is now 11.5%. So there's an advancement here. I don't think that will be kind of dramatically changed. However, there's no text without the context, right? So we all remember May 21, and I think that in May 21, what happened is, in a way, a consolidation. The three narrative, the three Palestinian, I would say, three Palestinian arms in the Israeli mindset. The three Palestinian arms kind of were consolidating, in the sense that Sheikh Jarrah, people from Sheikh Jarrah, have, of course, demonstrated because the court decided to, have them move out of their homes. In solidarity with that, we saw Israeli-Palestinian, what some would call Palestinian 48 within Israel, in solidarity with Eastern Jerusalemite, going out and, burning the streets, acting in violence, burning, everything, lots of violence on the streets. And in a relatively new way, Hamas shooting rockets, once again, as a solidarity with these two other kind of Palestinian arms. So I think in the Israeli mindset, the national component is not only still alive, but it is so sensitive, so sensitive. And people, you see every day, when we see Palestinian flags being, raised in Hebrew U or in Ben Gurion University by students who are trying to, to show their loyalty to their own people in many ways, we see how it is accepted in the Israeli society. So I would argue that while we will not see kind of a halt or stopping the socioeconomic advancement programs by this government, we will see further different approach, I would say, to any kind of Palestinian identity, kind of awareness of Palestinian identity, performance in the public sphere in Israel. It's Palestinian flags, it's Palestinian, literature, it's Palestinian movies, in festivals. This, I think, we will definitely gonna start see a lot of banning it and fighting it and finding every legal way to actually limit it very much. This is the 80%, 20%. So the 80% where we kind of all agree, which is, economy, socioeconomic advancement programs, and so on and so forth. I believe that will kind of continue. The 20% of identity belonging, for sure, national identity, kind of being distinct as Palestinians, will be a huge issue from now on.
Shahira, I'd love to turn it over for your perspective.
Oh, thank you very much. I think one of the things that I would like to raise, that I really agree. I agree with Barak, and I agree with this direction that the socio-economical improvement was very, very important during at least the last 30 years in Israel. You can see more Arabs are integrated in workplaces. You can see more educated. The number of the students in the universities increased in 100%. The percent of women who work outside their houses is increasing also, and so I call it, in my personal analysis, when I analyze it, the life living together is a very strong thing. The life is a strong thing that we have. People want to live, people want to improve their lives, people want to want to work, they want to raise their families, they want to raise their kids, they want to improve the situation. And this is something that's very strong. It's happening very strongly in Israel. And I will say something about this, later. But let me say that in the personal level, there are a lot of improvement, because people are more educated, people are more wealthy, people are more integrated. But in the collective level, the political collective level is the place where this economical development challenged. Okay, so it's not about having 500 physicians in one hospital and 1,000 students and 2,000 students, and it's about identity. This is what I agree also with you, Barak, that it's not about having the Arabs in the work, labor in Israel. It's about the identity that they are struggling for, the collective identity. And if you listen to me, sometimes I use the word Palestinians and then Arabs and then Palestinians, then Arabs. And this is one of the major conflicts that we have in Israel, that the recognition, people are saying, okay, so let's start from the beginning. Okay, I don't know if we can do it or not, but it's very important sometimes just to say, let's go to the starting point, okay, to the conflict, and decide what are we fighting for. We want to be, and this is one of the main voices, believe me, it's one of them, that Arabs are raising, that we want to be integrated. We want to be good citizens in the state of Israel. Does the state want us? And this is something that we are just ups and downs. One government really would like the Arabs to be integrated, and they are inviting the Knesset members to take part, and they are making governmental resolutions, and they want to support the Arab society. And then the other government is threatening the Arabs. You are going, we will throw you out. So let's decide, how do you want to play the game? We would like to be in this game. We want to play this game, but please, in one direction, because you can't just go and back, go and back. And this is the situation that's happening now with this government. I know that so many things of the laws, of the things that they are trying to do, they won't do. But the general discourse, do you know what does that mean? That you live in a city that you build it for years. You know, for me as an activist, I'm building the relationship between Arabs and Jews in the state of Israel and in Haifa, my city, for years. It's very difficult to build, and it's very easy to demolish this. And we don't want to destroy this. And last thing that I would like to say, Erika, I would like to make it short. I see that people, if you go to the social media, people are talking, you know, about how much, you know, Jews and Arab, how much it's important for them to be together. They are now talking about, my best doctor is Ahmad, you know, he's the doctor of my family. My best friend is, I went to Abu Ahmad and I ate falafel and he didn't charge me because I'm a soldier. So many, you know, sometimes for us, it seems like, you know, it's not relative, but this is very important for the people. This is what I call it, the shared living. People would like to say to this government, and this is one of the fighting back, to tell the government the relationship between Jews and Arabs are important for the people who live in the state of Israel. And this is something that we can build in it, our work in the future, to build the shared society organization, to support the shared society work in the field.
Thank you both. I think one thing that came out so much, and both of you shared, both where you had similar perspectives and different, is how Arab citizens are really sort of in the middle of this debate happening around them. It's very much about them. And, you know, as there's been this big, large trend of socioeconomic advancement, with still a long ways to go and a lot of work, is this going to be a moment where that stops and the way the government relates to these issues completely changes? Again, this political debate around this population, or is it not? And then the next question that you both touched on that I think will be a real theme in the next couple of years is, if this work is continuing, but these questions around identity are off the table or are a source of challenge in Jewish-Arab relations and Arab relations with the government, how will that affect that? Are these two things intrinsic? Can you be doing the socioeconomic development pieces while sort of these identity discussions are sort of held back or repressed? Or are those so intrinsically connected that you really can't have one without the other? So those were some big questions that were raised for me as both of you shared. But I also want to hear questions from all of you who are participating. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat, and we'll hopefully be able to get to a couple of them. And while we wait for some questions to show up in the chat, I'll ask you one, if you could touch on really briefly, from where you sit in Israel, Barak as a Jewish citizen, Shahira as an Arab Palestinian citizen, who both work with American Jewish communities, what do you think that American Jews should be paying attention to and understanding about what's going on right here? I know it's a huge question, but if you could just take a minute or two to just pop a few brief thoughts.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, it is a huge thing, and honestly, I'm still trying, together with my federation, still trying to figuring it out, right? Like what is our potential role these days and at large in the case of shared society? What might progress look like, right? So I'm thinking about the Pareto principle that states that 80% of consequences come from 20% of the causes, right? In an interesting way, this is Israel, right? 80% Jewish and democratic, while 20% of us, non-Jews, are challenging this kind of image of the country of Israel as a democratic and a Jewish state. And I think like I don't see it as a barrier. I actually see it as a huge opportunity for us. But I'm trying to have my colleagues and fellows from San Francisco, from the Bay Area, you know, to be very careful not to map the US political and cultural context on what is happening here, because I think really it is different. I also see that, you know, the shared society has not been given enter stage in Israel or among American Jewish communities. Actually, in recent weeks, we were very much focused on other things, and I'm trying to, you know, put it back on the agenda. So so many efforts that we were part of with so other funders and great people here are not, you know, in vain, and that we're right on top, and that this is a time to lean in, to engage, to pay attention, and really listen to activists, leaders, and professionals on the ground. Where this is the kind of work that we're kind of embedded in the last few weeks, to get a better sense and a better understanding where the communities are and how can we help.
Shahira, I'm going to pass that to you. And also I see Stephen's question, which you sort of touched on already, Barak, is about, do we think this worry is an overreaction? So Shahira, if you can integrate that into your answer as well.
Oh yes, just like as Barak said, and as we discussed it in the past, I think it's very important just to make it clear for the American audience, the American Jewish community should stay there. You know, sometimes it's we don't know sometimes what to do, because it's not only political issues. It's also about, you know, people who want to live here together. It's about the state of Israel. It's about the Palestinian society in Israel. So it's very important to continue to discuss it, you know, because as I started, you know, my things when I said a lot is happening. So sometimes it's very easy just to be busy with the what we think that is the most important issues, okay? But I think that we should always remember that minorities' rights in each state are very, very important. This is just the same thing that we should relate to this the same way that we relate to keep the democracy of the states. We need to keep minorities. And I think Palestinian minority is very important also in the state of Israel.
So I'm going to take this one question, and then we're going to close here for now and start moving towards our small group, which is, do you see the rhetoric and actions of the new government affecting shared society projects? Have you seen it so far? And do you think that might be changing? Barak, I'll ask you that question.
So it's really interesting. We're seeing, for example, in the area of bilingual schools, Jewish and Arabs, we see a very, I mean, they're waiting to see whether Avi Maoz, in the new, you know, minister in the Ministry of Education, will actually deploy or, you know, construct a policy that he was actually talking about that will limit dramatically not only their acknowledgement in the Ministry of Education, but their budgets. So this is one case. In other places, I didn't find yet any concrete kind of steps that are threatening. Once again, there's a lot of rhetoric. There's a huge, big problem with rhetoric and wording and so on and so forth, and declarations, but not yet, you know, concrete kind of budgetary steps or even intentions. I would say that what we already see is the implication of this rhetoric, even not in policy, but for example, with the LGBTQ community, we already see how it affects, you know, LGBTQ teens and, you know, young leaders and so on, who are starting actually to get attacked in schools because of rhetoric that they hear around the kind of news. So this is another issue, but once again, it's not totally distinct. We might see that happening as well.
I think that's a great distinction even to make into that question, is there's sort of two levels in which we could see these changes in the new government impacting shared society and shared society programs. One is very technical, budgets, laws, legislation, and the second is how discourse is shaped and how culture is changed around that. Shahira, I was wondering if you could briefly touch on that point.
Can you repeat it again?
Yes, just the idea of perhaps there are two ways in which the new government might be impacting shared society programs. One is
Oh, yeah.
technical changes like budgets, and the other is cultural changes that might shape society in bigger ways. So I was wondering what you thought about that.
I think at this time I don't agree with Barak, totally agree with Barak, partly agree with Barak, because I think that this government is going to make some changes in the budget, and I think it's gonna cut some of the budget of some of the organization that get support from the state. Because I will give you one examples of the areas that they started to think, okay? One of them, the cultural organizations. Cultural organizations like theater, music, and others are based on governmental support, okay? So I'm ahead of one of the organization. I'm ahead of the Beta Geffen. Beta Geffen is a cultural organization, multicultural organization, Jewish and Arab cultural organization. And we started to get messages from the how to call it, the cultural ministry, that we should be careful. Okay, you should be careful. We are not the only ones. One of the theaters, the Arab theaters, they already cut the budget. The Jewish and Arab in Jaffa, they already cut the budget, and one of the Arab theaters was closed because the government, the Ministry of Culture, decided not to support this theater. This is one of the places that, and I don't know if you heard about this. They're trying to make a decision that organization, NGOs, can't get governmental money from governmental money, as they can't raise. They have to pay taxes for governmental money that they raise. It means that if you are a shared society organization and you raise money from Germany or from Holland, from the EU, you should pay taxes if you have 50% more, 50% of your budget based on a governmental support. It means that you are trying to control this organization, the budget of the organization, in different ways. And the second part, how can I relate to this? Because the shared society programs, the shared society activity, let's talk not only program, as affected by the general discourse in Israel. When the discourse is positive, our work is excellent, and we work more. We will have more participants, more programs. When the discourse is positive, we will have more Jews and Arab students want to go to the shared education. We will find more, cultural artists making, exhibition together. But when when you have, a negative discourse, people will just stay at their homes. They will be afraid to do activities together because they will be criticized by other groups. So it's a kind of complicated things, and we witnessed it. We witnessed this, during the 10 years when Netanyahu was the prime minister of Israel. So many things changed there. We are not just like, it's not a paranoia. I don't know how to say it in English, but it's a kind of things that we went through for years, and that's why I'm worried today.